Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has personally drafted 2 impeachment articles, one involving the president's phone calls to Georgia officials and the other involving the mob riot. I spoke to her earlier this morning. Joining us right now is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Great to be here.
All right. And Congresswoman, I want to ask you, you have written articles, the articles of impeachment. You're talking about 2 articles. Can you explain that?
Yes, we believe that the events of Wednesday and the events that took place with the president and the phone call to the Secretary of State of Georgia are both an abuse of power and incitement of insurrection.
All right.
So the articles of impeachment address both of those incidents.
All right. Will there be definitely a vote on impeachment on the floor, whether it's the 2 articles or just the one having to do with the riot?
That is our hope. Right now, we are still in the process of pushing our colleagues to come to the consensus to realize that the actions of the president are deserving of consequences, that if we do not take a decisive expedient decision on how to deal with these actions, we risk further damage to our democracy, to our republic. We all understand quite seriously how much of an imminent threat we face because of this president. And it is really important for us to put politics aside, for us to not really think about what it means as far as, you know, working on policies and the time it will take to impeach him, but to prioritize fulfilling our oath of office. We are constitutionally mandated to protect and preserve our democracy and our republic, and this man is clearly exhibiting dangers to it.
All right. The Senate apparently is not in session all this next week, and the Senate is saying that if they were going to have a trial, it would be after the new President-elect Biden, is sworn in, which means that would dominate the first weeks of his term. Is it worth it impeaching President Trump even after he leaves office?
So I think in regards to the practicality of what we have to do, obviously the House is not in session either. We're coming in tomorrow, hopefully, to introduce these articles of impeachment and these resolutions. It will take some time before we are formally called back in order for us to deliberate and set the guidelines on how to proceed. And the Senate, as you alluded to, is not going to be in session until the 19th of January. That is the day before a new president gets inaugurated. We risk obviously having this process overshadow everything that we want to do on behalf of the country. But to me, there is a greater risk. And that greater risk is not having consequences for this president and his actions and those in the House and in the Senate that have enabled this insurrection and attempted coup to take place. If we do not take action, a decisive action, then we are sending a message to the country and to the world that ours is one where our democracy can come under siege, our capital, our nation's capital can be threatened, and we look the other way and go back and move on. That is not the kind of message that we want to send, and that is not what fulfilling our oath of office really is.
How much of the push to impeachment is the part that could guarantee that he would not be able or allowed to run for office ever again? Is that important to you?
Yes, that is important. It is important that, again, that there has to be a recognition that your actions and dangerous actions and deadly actions, such as what happened on Wednesday, warrant consequences. And if we do not do that, then history will not look kindly on us.
You have personally been targeted and called out by the president so many times. It must have been frightening to be there, to be in your shoes. You also have a family. It must have been frightening for them.
Yeah, it was really a horrifying experience, not just for the nation, the world, but those of us who were caught up in the middle of it. I obviously have experienced a lot of serious threats because of this president and had to get especially evacuated. And so I am so grateful for that. And I had the fortune of being put in an extremely secure place with the leaders of the House and in the Senate. But it really is an event that none of us had ever wanted to experience. And now that we have experienced it, there has to be actions that are taken in order to avoid this from happening again.
All right. Well, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, thank you so much for your time. And I think regardless of politics, it's such a tragedy that 5 people died, that others were badly hurt. But we are so fortunate that more people were not seriously injured or even killed.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.